Thank you, everybody. Sorry, we're a few minutes late, but what we're going to do is kind of kick off with Seb giving a few remarks. We have Rune Andersson here as well. He's going to say a few words also about the Russian task force, and then Seb is going to go through the details. This may seem a little bit longer than we would normally do as an introduction, but there are 4 decisions that were made today, and it's important that everybody understands what sits behind each of those 4. So please bear with us, and the press release will be ready to be issued as soon as we've finished, or hopefully just before. Seb, over to you.
Jackie, thank you. And in the words of the last 4 British Prime Ministers, I don't really intend to detain you too long, but I do have quite a level of detail here from the council meetings over the last 2 days. So first of all, good evening to those of you who are in our time zone. I recognise there are some of you on the screen that are in slightly less hospitable time zones, but thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us. As you know, the council has just had 3 days of meetings. We started those with an executive board meeting as well. They've all been virtual meetings, as we agreed following the pandemic, that one of our 3 council meetings over the yearly cycle would be held virtually. I hope you saw the press release issued yesterday on our key competition decisions, and I'd like to take the opportunity of welcoming Antalya in Turkey, who will be hosting our 2024 World Athletics Race Walking Team Championships, and Toruń in the Krakowian-Pomeranian region of Poland, who will be hosting our 2026 World Athletics Indoor Championships. Both countries, as you know, have hosted successful athletics events in the past, and we know they all have a strong athletic support and fans. So congratulations to those 2 cities. Yesterday, we also heard from the team hosting the World Championships later this year in Budapest, and they reported to us live from the stadium. It looked a lot different from when I was last there, and they did so on the 150 days to go. Progress is good, and we're really looking forward to being there for what I know will be an exhilarating championships. Now, if I may move on to today, the World Athletics Council has already made a number of important decisions regarding the future participation of the Russian and Belarusian athletics federations, and the amendment of eligibility regulations for athletes who are transgender and who have differences of sexual development, DSD. The Council agreed to the reinstatement of the Russian Federation, RUSAF, following 7 years of suspension. And that, of course, was due to the egregious institutional doping violations. However, athletes, officials, and supporting personnel from Russia and Belarus are still excluded from competition for the foreseeable future due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I will hand over to Rune Andersson, chair of our Russia Task Force, to summarize the decisions and the lengthy 7-year journey to that decision. Rune, thank you for being with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Seb. And as you mentioned, I delivered my final report to Council today in my capacity as the independent chair of the Russia Task Force. I did remind Council that RUSAF was originally suspended from membership in November 2015 due to its whole-scale breach of its anti-doping obligations, and that in November 2021, Congress resolved to continue that suspension until RUSAF had met all of the reinstatement conditions set by Council. I advise Council today that those conditions have now been met. Sorry. First, an independent audit team has confirmed that RUSAF has met all of the detailed KPIs and other requirements set out in the reinstatement plan that Council approved in March 2021. And second, RUSAF has accepted a detailed set of post-reinstatement conditions designed to ensure there is no backsliding from the significant progress that it has made to date. These are in addition to the other special requirements that RUSAF will have to meet as a Category A member federation under the rules of the World Athletics. I told Council that the task force met with RUSAF President Peter Ivanov and his senior management team in person in Istanbul last week. They satisfied us that they understand the importance of these requirements and that they are committed to complying with them. Given all this, the task force recommended that Council lift RUSAF's suspension and reinstate it to membership on the basis that it has to comply with all of the above mentioned requirements for at least 3 years, with such compliance to be monitored by the AIU, that is the Athletics Integrity Unit, at RUSAF's cost. Council adopted that resolution, and therefore the task force work has come to an end.
Thank you. Rune, have you finished?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Oh, Runa,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Sorry, I thought for a moment your screen had frozen. Runa, look, thank you for that. I'm sure there may be some questions that will come your way towards the end of the press conference. But let me just digress for a moment, because I'd just like to take this opportunity. I know I speak on behalf of all my council colleagues, and particularly those members of the task force, for the Herculean work that you and the team have done over the last 7 years. It's been exemplary, it's been painstaking, and I know at times it's been painful. This work was absolutely essential. It followed a process. And I like to think that those athletes that are going to be competing, I hope in future years in Russia, do so with the confidence of the rest of the sport. We still have some way to go. I think it is worth pointing out that alongside this reinstatement, there is a list of 35 special conditions to be applied for a period of 3 years. With a review at the end of that period to determine whether or not it is necessary to maintain those conditions as they are, or with variations for a further period. The Council then approved the recommendation to continue to exclude Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from all our World Athletics Series events, World Championships, our Continental Tour meetings and other international competitions, and that is for the foreseeable future because of the invasion and the ongoing war in Ukraine. The full details of exclusion are included in the press release that will be issued at the end of this press conference. Both federations have 24 hours to respond to the Council's decision for Council again to consider. The Council has also approved the establishment of a working group to advise and recommend to the Council the conditions that would need to be met for the restrictions on athletes and officials from RUSAF and the Belarus Athletics Member Federation participating in World Athletics Series events to be lifted. This will be set up in the next few weeks. Let me now move on to the DSD and transgender regulations. The World Athletics Council has today taken the decisive action to protect the female category in our sport, and to do so by restricting the participation of transgender and DSD athletes. The decision was taken in consultation with a number of stakeholders, including 40 member federations, our coaches, our athletes, and through the Athletes Commission, as well as a range of other community groups, including trans groups, UN experts, the International Olympic Committee, and para athletics. Let me, if I may, start with the transgender athletes. The majority of those consulted stated that transgender athletes should not be competing in the female category. Many believe there is insufficient evidence that trans women do not retain advantage over biological women, and more evidence than any physical advantages have been ameliorated before they are willing to consider an option for inclusion into the female category. Unlike DSD athletes, there are no transgender athletes competing in international competition in athletics, and no observations therefore exist from the front line, in our case, the field of play, across the different disciplines that are specific to our sport, i.e. endurance running, sprints, throws, jumps, and road events. Where the science is insufficient to justify maintaining testosterone suppression for transgender athletes, the Council agreed it must be guided by our overarching principle, which is to protect the female category. We cannot, in all conscience, leave our transgender regulations as they were at 5 nanomoles per litre for at least 1 year, when we were unsure about the impact of doing so across all our disciplines. So we need to know more, and we need to know more now. The Council has agreed to exclude male to female transgender athletes who have been through male puberty from female world ranking competitions from March the 31st this year. However, in order to do further research into our transgender eligibility guidelines, we will be establishing a working group whose remit will be to consult specifically with transgender athletes to seek views on competing in athletics, to review and maybe commission additional research where there is currently limited research, and to put forward recommendations to Council. The working group will include an independent chair, up to 3 Council members, 2 athletes from the Athletes Commission, a transgender athlete from athletics, 3 representatives of our member federations, and representatives of the World Athletics Health and Science Department. Let me, if I may, now turn to our DSD eligibility. The World's Athletics Council today decided to reduce the testosterone threshold for DSD athletes to 2.5 nanomoles per litre across all our events. We have DSD athletes competing in the unrestricted events in our sport, and we have 15 years of data, observations, and information directly from our own sport and, of course, our DSD athletes. As far as our medical manager is aware, there is no relevant athlete, by that I mean DSD athlete, in jumping or throwing events. Among the 13 athletes the medical manager has been in contact with and that we mentioned in our consultation paper, all have declined testosterone suppression or a complete medical assessment. Because of this, they have not been eligible to compete in the restricted events since 2019. Of those athletes still competing in the unrestricted events, around half are competing in running events over the mile, and the other half are competing in distances below 400 meters. We want to give the DSD athletes who are already competing in our sport, i.e. in the unrestricted events, all those outside of 400 to 1 mile, the opportunity to resume competition. But our scientific advice is that 6 months is the minimum period necessary to ensure their naturally high testosterone levels are no longer giving them an advantage over biological women. These interim provisions are only for athletes who are currently competing in non-restricted events, throwing, jumping, running below 400 meters or beyond the mile. The interim provisions do not apply to the previously restricted events. The 6-month duration chosen for the interim provision is a compromise to provide and allow the relevant athletes who previously competed in unrestricted events an opportunity to compete in compliance with our DSD regulations that were approved today. The 6-month period is in line with the required suppression for the current DSD regulations, and according to the available science, it is enough to bring hemoglobin levels, a key determinant of performance, from natural male levels to normal female levels. It is unlikely to be sufficient to reduce enough performance advantage in the power strength-based disciplines. Therefore, we believe that the interim provisions are likely to level the playing field in running events beyond the mile, where 55% of our identified relevant athletes compete. It is likely to still be insufficient to reduce the unfair advantage the relevant athlete experiences in sprinting events, where 45% of the identified relevant athletes are currently competing. DSD athletes who have been competing in the unrestricted events can apply to benefit from a reduced 6-month period to maintain testosterone levels under 2.5 nanomoles per litre, provided they apply and suppress their testosterone level to 2.5 nanomoles per litre before 1 July of this year, 2023. So none of these athletes will be eligible to compete in the World Athletics Championships in Budapest in August. They will be eligible to compete in other events after that 6-month period, including the Paris Olympic Games next year, if and only if they maintain their testosterone at the required level. I know there is a lot of detail there, but I'm going to hand over to Jackie at this moment.
Thanks. If you can put questions in the chat, it's going to be a lot easier than just identifying everybody and then unpinning you or allowing you to speak. So if we can do that, that would be better. Zeke, I see you've had your hand up for ages, but can you type as quickly as you speak, hopefully? And Rob, I know you just asked that question. We'll just give you a few moments.
All right, I'll type it now, Jackie.
Hi, Martin.
Rob, I do understand it's better for TV, but as I said, it is quite difficult to unmute everybody individually. So if you wait till the end, if you like, and if there is you can ask a question directly. Yep. Thanks. Okay, see. So hi Seb, how do you feel about the IOC trying to allow Russians to compete as neutrals despite Ukraine war still going on?
Martin, hi. Look, I think the position the council has taken today is very clear. There's no ambiguity about it. The primacy for the decision around eligibility rests with the International Federation. That is something that was agreed at the Court of Arbitration when we were last there over the Russian doping violations. It is accepted by the International Olympic Committee, and that is what we have decided today, that we felt it was in the best interests of our sport. So we determine eligibility, and for our World Championship events for the foreseeable future, the exclusion remains.
Okay, Eddie, regarding Eddie Pelsing, regarding Russia and Belarus, is World Athletics consulting with trying to get in sync with the IOC program? Eddie, I think the decision that was council made today was actually the opposite of what the IOC is trying to do. Rachel, is it still World Athletics' position that Russia will need to leave Ukraine in order for its athletes to be allowed to compete in international athletics?
Well, that was my instinct in Rome at our council meeting when I got asked that question before Christmas. It remains my instinct, but I think that will also fall firmly within the remit of the working group that will want to look at that process. I'm very keen to establish that working group. The working group that Runa Andersson chaired so ably into the doping violations in Russia proved to be a really good process. We were much stronger for that process, and we got to where we wanted to. When it comes to the working group here, clearly they will want to make those types of decisions. What are the metrics by which those athletes can come back into competition? But the council, on the basis of what we know now, were very clear that this was not the right moment. But I do think having a working group chaired independently that can now start looking at what that process going forward might look like and what it would take to remove that exclusion from athletes and officials in Russia and Belarus.
Okay, thank you. Alex has got a question, which I might just answer if that's right what you said. Bit confused over DSD. Can they compete in the restricted events if testosterone levels meet the new criteria? So in the restricted events, DSD athletes need to take their testosterone, suppressed testosterone 2.5 for 2 years. So it's the provision, the special provision that does not apply to the restricted events, it only applies to the unrestricted. Is that clear, Alex? I'm sure you'll tell me if it's not. Mark, I don't remember you've officially said if you'll run for a third term, Seb.
I haven't, but I'm very happy to declare that I will now. But you'll be pleased to know there are not too many shocked faces around the table.
Okay, Sarah, hi. Thanks for making the time to clarify the Belarus policy. If Belarusian athletes are excluded from World Athletics events, i.e. World Championships, are they ineligible to seek qualification to the Paris Olympics?
Yes.
Thanks, Seb. Okay. Hi. How is the situation of the Paris 2024 mixed race walking event right now? There are only 16 months left and the athletes don't know what distance they should train.
We made the decision in the council. I'm not actually sure when.
When are
we going to relay that?
It goes to the IOC. The IOC's executive board will be discussing it at the end of next week.
Yeah, so they will know very quickly. Yeah.
Rob, I've been told by our IT that we can unmute you so you can ask a question.
Sure. Hi, Seb.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there. Is this the most difficult decision you've had to take, excluding trans women from events?
Look, none of the decisions that we've made in this council have been easy decisions. I mean, actually, if I may say so, that has been the hallmark of the last two councils. We've been prepared to tackle these issues head on. In the past, they'd have been allowed to drift or kicked into the long grass. That's not the nature of my leadership here, and it's certainly not the instincts of my council. So look, we entered, as you know, we entered a consultation some months ago. We did so because we wanted to provoke debate. It was really important that we heard from all our stakeholders, including the athletes, the coaches, the member federations. My goodness, we heard from them. So the judgment that we took once we had sifted our way through that consultation was, I believe, in the best interests of our sport. The working group, however, is very clear that, you know, we want to be able to discuss and communicate directly to the trans community. I'm going to ask a transgender athlete to chair that working group. We're not saying no forever and prevailing, understanding, changing science. But I think our instinct was that while there is uncertainty about that science, it is not as robust as the science and the information, the data that we have on the 15 years of work that we've been doing on the front line with DSD athletes. And where that science wasn't as robust as in DSD, we decided that it was impossible to maintain the transgender regulations at the level that they were. And I think that is the right decision. But we are very clear that that working group will look at any prevailing or changing or furthering of our understanding in that space. We don't know enough. We do now need to know more. And that is the journey that we're on. But we weren't prepared to risk the female category on that basis.
There are athletes now who feel excluded and discriminated against. What is your message to them as they feel this pain, perhaps?
The decision that the council made is a primarily principled based decision, and that is the overarching need to protect the female category. This is what our sport is here to do, and I think the council has done that today.
Rachel, I've got a question from you. Does World Athletics anticipate its policy on transgender athletes will remain the same as it's been announced today through the final qualifications and trials for the Paris Olympics?
Yes, it will.
Okay, any further questions? Sorry, I know it's easier to speak, but it's a bit of a challenge for us to unmute individuals, so. Hi, David. Do you expect any legal issues over the new transgender policy? UK Athletics have flagged legal issues in the UK.
David, hi. It's possible. Look, I made this point to the council today that all the decisions we've taken have their challenges. They have medical challenges, they have scientific challenges, they have legal challenges, they certainly have communications challenges. So look, if that is the case, then we will do what we have done in the past, which is vigorously defend our position. And the overarching principle for me is we will always do what we think is in the best interest of our sport.
Thanks, Seb. Any other questions? No, the press release I think is heading out soon, so all the details will be in there, including the links to the task force report, also to the full transgender and DSD regulations, so you can read them all at your leisure. Rob Harris has asked, did you think of an open category?
That was part of the consultation. Various conversations came back, various overtures, but we think at this moment we have reached the right, we've got the right approach, and that's where we are.
Okay, Sarah, Sarah, hi. Have you spoken with the IOC and or Thomas Bach about the decision to exclude Russia and Belarus from athletics events? And if so, what's been the substance of your conversation to that point?
Look, I've had ongoing dialogue with the International Olympic Committee. I am, after all, an International Olympic Committee member. And that dialogue has been, been running actually since the illegal invasion of Ukraine. I will be attending meetings on Monday with fellow IOC members, and actually soon after that, wearing my International Federation hat as well. So there will be plenty of opportunities, but I think you can probably conclude the IOC is not in any doubt about where I sit on that issue.
Thank you. And that was the same question from David. Any other questions? No? Hold on. Yes, hi, Mark. Did Sergei Bubka attend your meeting, and what was his position about Russia?
Sergei did attend the meeting, and I think you can conclude that he was on the majority view on the exclusion of Russia or Belarusian athletes.
Okay, so all of you, you know how to reach us, so do contact us if there are any other questions or if anything else is unclear. And as I said, the press release will be hopefully hitting your inboxes in the next few minutes. So thank you for your time and your patience, and please do come back to us if there is anything unclear. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.